This is Penhold Talk Radio. And welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us again this week. My name is Brian Constantine. I am here with my co-host, Michael Rowland.
Hello, hello.
And as you can see, we are thoroughly enjoying the first news article of the show. DQ is now officially open.
And they are busy. It looks like people are excited to see them here. What a day to open. Beautiful day today. It's just warm out and it's a great day to go get ice cream and celebrate the new entry in town.
Yeah, I believe this is I think there's two important things that are connected to the opening of DQ. I believe it's officially summer now. I think I could be wrong, but I think it's officially summer. I think that's right.
Close enough.
Yeah. And I think we officially become a city now, right? Doesn't it? we now have, a grocery store, we have a Tim Hortons, we have DQ. We even have a cannabis shop. Like, we have to be a city now, right?
We've got everything a city needs.
Like, come on. We're a city now. Welcome to the city of Penhold. So yes, DQ is open. Looks like a warm weekend, so go out there, enjoy a nice frosty beverage. The other thing kind of connected with ice cream that we want to bring to your attention is the Penhold Museum, Penhold and District Museum Society, I think it's official title. They're having their AGM on April 13th. And so, like I said, speaking of ice cream, these are the guys who are in charge of that $2 ice cream that you enjoy every weeknight.
The classic ice cream shack.
Yes.
Most people in town know it. And if they don't, the first time they find out about it, it becomes a favorite pastime.
Yeah. Immediately it becomes the tradition.
Yeah.
And I don't think DQ is going to be competing with their $2 ice cream. That's probably not quite in their business plan for that.
Yeah. I don't think they fall in the same kind of pricing category.
No, I don't think so. So yes, if you've enjoyed their ice cream evenings that they have throughout the summer, or if you just want to help out with their role in town and their preservation of the history of Penhold, April 13th is the day to kind of get involved, or if not to be on their board, at least go and find out. They're going to be talking on the agenda is the ice cream shack. So if you want to know what's going on with that, you know where to go now on April 13th. You can also go to their Facebook page for more information on the exact time. I believe it's in the evening. But if you go to the Penhold and District Museum Society, you'll see all their details there, and you can get involved with them. I'm sure they would appreciate that. All right. In other news, provincially, let's see here. Let's start with the fact that the circus is not coming to town this weekend. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, last minute change.
It was, yep. This is the political circus, of course, of the UCP leadership vote, or leadership, what are they calling it? The leadership review, something like that. Special general meeting, I think, is the official.
Yeah.
But basically, this is a referendum on Jason Kenney's leadership and whether or not the UCP wants him around any longer. So initially, that was going to be an in-person event on Saturday, and it turns out that the Cambridge downtown, or in Red Deer, the constantly changing hotel, the Cambridge only holds 2,000 people, and apparently 20,000 had registered to attend.
Yeah, their earlier estimates didn't even come close, and then it just kept growing and growing. People were committing to come from all over the province for this.
Yeah, this is 10 times the amount of people that showed up for the inaugural AGM of the UCP. Like, this is just insane. And so unfortunately that is not coming to town. Instead, they've gone to an online format. And so now, instead of voting in person, all UCP members are going to be allowed to vote. They're going to mail out the ballots and then you can send them back in if you're a registered UCP member. And so that you can expect those in the mail. I won't get too deep into that, but I know Brian Jean wasn't too happy with that change. I get it. I think there's usually a lot more people who are kind of motivated to change than those who are just satisfied with the status quo. They're not going to make the travel into Red Deer. Yeah. And so the people who show up are going to be likely to be the ones who are most driven for change. So this probably bodes well for Kenney, though in the end I've seen some recent polls that still wouldn't make me sit too comfortably at night if I was him.
No, he's still not a terribly popular person within the conservative side
within
of
his own party. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't even look at the just general province wide, but look specifically at the UCP, and polling is showing him at a pretty low rate of popularity. It's not looking good.
Yeah. And yeah, he's in full campaign mode. If you've been following him on Facebook, he is,
or anywhere else, Twitter
right?
Or on the radio. I've been hearing radio ads of his that are trying to promote all the wonderful things he did.
Yep.
So yeah, he's campaigning as much as you would in any election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this for him is kind of his political career, at least for this moment. Who knows about next week? That's how things go in politics.
But with this being switched to a mail-in ballot system, we're going to be delayed a little bit before we have results.
Yeah, the results won't come in until May 18th. So I think you have to get your ballot in on before May 11th, and then they are counting and releasing the totals the next week. So May 18th is the day we'll know if the UCP want to change out their leadership and therefore basically change premiers. And then we get to do this all over again within the next year, provincial wide, or province wide. And yeah, it's like I said, the circus has not come to town. The circus though is still ongoing. It's a province wide one.
Yep.
Speaking of circuses, down in Calgary, they're having some fun and games.
Fun.
Oh yeah, this is kind of the ridiculous story of the week. So down in Calgary, so what, at least as far as my kind of understanding goes, as I read the background on this, the Calgary Police Service is kind of governed by the Calgary Police Commission, and the Calgary Police Commission is, I believe, 10 community members of Calgary and 2 councillors, something like that. Basically, it's kind of the civilian oversight for the police service.
Yeah,
and this is I don't think this is uncommon. I think this is how police and law enforcement usually play out. Same with military. It's always civilian oversight. But that police commission down in Calgary decided they wanted to change an emblem on the uniform of the police service that police officers had recently put on their uniform. I think in the last couple of years, they wanted to get rid of it. In fact, one councillor, Giancarlo Cara. So this is an elected councillor in Calgary. This is how he describes the patch. All right, I'm not telling you about the patch yet. I'll tell you in a second. But just imagine what this patch might be based on this description. All right. So here's a quote from the Calgary councillor. It says, what we are asking here is that our police service not wear a known hate symbol whose origins are buried in hateful thoughts and hateful deeds when they serve the public.
Must be wearing a swastika or something.
Really, certainly this is a known hate symbol.
It's a hate symbol.
Like, I can't believe the police service are doing this. Like, this is on all the uniforms. Like, how can they be so egregious and so inconsiderate to wear hate symbols on the police service? What we are actually talking about is the thin blue line emblem, and basically it's a black and white Canadian flag with a thin blue line across it through the middle of it.
Yeah, a common symbol it's used in the States. It's used in numerous places as a police symbol.
Yes, and the normal person's understanding of it is that this is to represent and honor those who have died in line of service. That's the general usage of this. And this police commission, they spent a year studying this.
Oh man,
they spent a year studying this, and then last week, March 30th, I think, so a little over a week ago, they said no. This is we've apparently heard feedback from some certain people that this makes them feel uncomfortable. That this makes them feel afraid when they are when they have to interact with the police service in Calgary, when they see this black and white flag with a blue stripe through it. This is this, I think it gets end up tying back to the whole Black Lives Matter and so the protests that we saw a couple of years ago. But when this came out, the police service or the Calgary police chief, Mark Neufeld, says he himself said that that his members were incensed by this. Like, you already, like, I'm at this point, I would not be eager to join the police service. Like, even if I was driven in that direction, like their perception and the way that the politics around them are handled is just egregious.
Oh, that's become a problem in numerous cities in the States, big cities, Canada, seeing it in the big cities where they're having a hard time getting police officers because of the politics of it.
Yep.
And the perception that's been pushed by, at least by the media and by certain people in the public. People are afraid to be a police officer because that immediately kind of demonizes them.
Yeah. And just, unnecessarily so. Like, you can go ahead and point to bad apples. Go ahead and do that. But there's no way you can say that the police service overall is this kind of corrupt body of racist thrill seekers or something like that. Like, it's just this nonsense. And so the fact that the Calgary Police Commission would go along with such an opinion on was clearly used to honor those that have actually given their lives to protect our country, our cities, our laws, and enforce those laws is just mind-boggling that you would be so swayed by the kind of the emotions and the kind of societal and political cultural pressures of the day to go this. This is like saying that you have to go along with the people who are arguing that the sky is purple. Like, and you know, if you don't say that the sky is purple, you'll hurt their feelings, or you make them feel uncomfortable. Like, that's I think that's an apt analogy here. These are clearly not being used for racist perceptions, or this is not a hate symbol. And that's just the reality of it. And so for those who can't recognize that reality, it doesn't mean anyone else has to go along with it.
Yeah.
And so, that's, so I'm happy to see that the police commission and the police officers are pushing back against this. This is something that they should stand up for. And all the best to them in their efforts to maintain this against such a ridiculous and really insensitive move by politicians and a police commission. All right. The other kind of news on the national scale is that the federal budget has finally been released. I feel like this might be the first budget in a couple of years. I'm pretty sure they skipped one like their last one because of all the pandemic stuff.
That could be. I don't recall anything last year.
Yeah, I think it's at least been a couple of years.
Or at least if it was overshadowed by pandemic relief and a number of other things that kind of made the budget null and void anyway.
Yeah, when you're spending that much money that fast, what's budget mean? Like, we're not tied to anything like that. But no, when the federal budget came out, I kind of get a chuckle out of the fact that CBC has like a whole lineup, or a whole day of programming set to this. They even use the terms pre-show and post-show analysis or something like that. The show
is this a sporting event for them?
Apparently it is. So that was in that the show was the reading out of the budget by Minister of Finance Christiana Freeland. And so CBC had a whole apparently day of programming associated to this. I think probably CTV probably had it too, but I ended up reading on CBC. I found that a bit humorous. And as it shouldn't be a surprise to most people when you have a liberal / NDP government in place. Fiscal responsibility is nowhere to be found.
Let the money flow.
Yeah, or print in this case.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I got printer. We haven't run out of ink yet. Let's keep going. Yeah. So the federal the 2022 budget has now $56 billion in new spending over the next 6 years. This also includes another $52 billion estimated deficit over this next fiscal year.
Oh, what's 52 billion?
Hey,
It's nothing.
No, especially this has to be this. You have to contextualize this. 52 might seem like a lot, but remember last year it was $113 billion deficit.
Oh, we've cut it down by like a third.
Yeah,
Pretty close.
Yeah, over half at least.
Yeah.
And so like we're doing really good. Like what are you criticizing me for overspending my budget by $50 billion? You have to see this in the context. We are doing really, really good. Yeah. So that 52 billion goes on top now of a federal deficit now that's over $1 trillion. I know I'm just saying words at this point. Like it's nonsense.
Yeah.
We're talking a number with 12 zeros after it. And it goes up by $400 million every day.
That's insane.
Like I said, I'm talking gibberish, really.
How many people live in Canada right now?
You can't think of that.
What are we at for a population?
About 37 million.
So we're under 40 million, and we're doing 400 million a day in debt. We're taking out debt at a rate of $10 a day per person.
Something
more
like
than that per person in Canada. How long can that go on?
Yeah, especially when you consider the interest fees that are associated with it. So just to service, not to pay down the principal, as it were, but just the interest fees. That's costing $20 billion every year at the federal level. $20 billion goes to service fees.
And then we're adding debt on top of that. So we're going to be adding service fees on top of that. And we're growing it.
Yep.
It's a never ending cycle.
It's certainly a concerning spiral. I'm not sure cycle. I think we've hit the spiral phase now. I think we're in the death spiral. Especially now, especially when you think about, when you have a debt that big, just picture how much difference it makes when say the interest rate goes up by just 0.1%.
Yeah.
Like it's absurd amount. And so the interest rates, which are creeping up because now inflation has gone up.
Yep.
And so to kind of curb the spending, you raise up the interest rate, kind of slow down the spending, and hopefully that pulls down interest or pulls down your inflation. But that also goes and attacks all those loans you have out, all those debts.
Yeah.
The federal government's no different. So yeah, that is should be definitely concerning. For every Canadian, like that is going to be what really does the long-term damage to the country.
And I think just the scale of those numbers puts it into a realm where people just can't grasp it.
No.
But if you pull that down, like scale it down to what an average person makes in a year, and then talk to a financial advisor, should I take out this much debt every year?
Right.
Immediately it's going to be no, bad idea. We need to do something. We need to fix this before it falls apart.
Yep.
Scale that back up. Why is it okay on a federal level to just keep compounding this, keep growing this debt until what's going to happen?
I know. I don't get why the fiscal responsibility of, say, a family should be run on any different principles than a country. Yeah. Like really, what is dramatically different to that? Like the only thing is you could claim that the federal government has more guaranteed income if anything else. But even that, it can get to a point, especially with the way inflation is going, that money that people are bringing in becomes less and less valuable.
Yeah.
And becomes less and less, you're going to see less and less revenue, or less income from the populace from which to steal, or I should say, from which to draw from. I'll talk about stealing later on, but yeah, when the income levels start coming down, the tax revenues are going to come down with it. So but yeah, the principle should remain the same, like, especially to this extent. Like there's just no reason to be this far off the trail. And then they aren't even budgeting a balance. They don't even say that they're going to be balancing the budget in the next 5 years. They're boasting that by 2026-27 they'll have the deficit down to $8 billion a year. Which is
they're really not making an effort.
No, this is going to hurt, and I'm concerned that it might hurt sooner than later. Like at some point, all these services, you're not going to be able to fund them. You're going to be cutting back on them. All these things that people are relying on, you're going to have to cut them. We've seen this was happening with I think most recently, I'm going to say Greece comes to mind. All the austerity measures, like just like in your own home. If you go to a debt manager, or if you go to a debt servicing company, someone who's going to help you with the debt, he's going to chop up all your credit cards, and you're going to go through your budget line by line to see where you need to trim things out.
You'll be living on rice and beans for a while, and you're not going to have all those amenities that you're used to having.
Yeah,
on a federal scale, that's really what's going to need to happen or end up happening. We're going to have to cut back all these extra services that they like doling out and spending a lot of money on.
Yeah. So along with the budget being announced, I'm sure, as most of you all know by now, this is also the middle of tax season.
Hopefully you know by now.
If not, here's your notice.
You're pushing the limits here. You might want to get on that before the end of this month.
I was going to say April 30th?
April 30th, I believe, is the deadline.
Yeah. The caveat, though, I always get a kick out of as well. April 30th is the deadline if you owe the government money. That's when your interest kind of will start kicking in if you haven't kind of set up that payment or whatever. But if the government owes you money, they don't really care when you put in your money or when you put in your tax return. Though if you owe money, or if the government owes you money, you've probably put in your taxes by now. But yes, so this is also tax season, and of course, as soon as that topic comes up, along with the budget, there's a million opinions and a million and one complaints that go along with that.
Yeah, everybody loves to complain about paying too much taxes. Taxes, theft. I don't want to pay this.
That's right. And let me just first of all say, yes, I kind of sympathize with that perspective.
Admittedly, this time of year, I take a little bit of a different mindset because I always get a tax return.
Yeah.
I always get money back at this time. I like to conveniently forget that I've been paying them money all throughout the year, and this just feels like a nice reward, but it is my money.
Yes. So yeah, that's the thing. The government gets your money before you do.
Yeah.
And so that could be a topic all on its own there. Like, how come I can't get my money first and then you can come get it? But anyways, so this got me kind of thinking about kind of how the taxes are set up across the provinces, across the country, and even here in Penhold. Now, I know a common complaint is that Penhold has high property taxes.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of take a look and try to understand that a little bit more. And the first thing that to understand, or that I came across, is I had to understand what a mill rate is.
They can't use something easy. They can't just give you a percentage or
I know,
something.
right?
They call it a mill rate. Nobody really understands it. Like the average homeowner just pays their taxes.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's how I am. So what I'm telling you is information I've pretty much learned like in the last week or two. But yeah, I am one of those ones. If the system is kind of working, even though if I don't like the system, it's not worth my bother to try to get involved and try to finagle or kind of fix it or try to mess with it. We're kind of still going down the road. It's a bumpy road, but we're doing something. But no, I try to get into the numbers a little bit. So mill rate. So the simplest way here is that you have percentages, which tells you how much of something out of 100. So you kind of break things down into 100 pieces. And if you ask for a percentage, it just tells you how many of those pieces of 100 you get.
Yep.
With a mill rate, it just breaks things down into 1,000 pieces. And then it tells you how many things you get.
Yeah.
So if you want the mill rate, you simply divide your percent by another 10, by 10, by a factor of 10.
Yeah. So when you're looking at your mill rate on your property tax, just move that percentage, that decimal point over to the left one.
Yep.
And then you've got your percentage.
Your mill rate. You have your mill rate, right?
If you've got your mill rate, you take it and move it over one decimal point to your left. So that it's a smaller number.
Yes.
That's your percentage.
Yes.
But they can't just do a percentage.
Yes. So for example, in Penhold, the mill rate for the residential rate is 8.8. If you were to put that into percentage, it would be 0.88.
Yeah.
So I follow along. So mill rate is 8.8. So basically what it's saying is that for every $1,000 of property you own, you're paying $8.80.
Yeah.
That's what the mill rate means. Or 0.88%. Why the confusion? I don't know.
Everything else in math is percentages.
Yeah, all your income taxes, all your federal taxes, provincial taxes, I think everything else is in percent form. This is in mill rate. So yeah, Penhold. So for every $1,000 in property value that you are assessed, you are paying a mill rate of 8.8 mils. And so obviously you can factor that up to whatever you owe. So you can basically take your value or your property value times by 8.8 and then divide by 1,000, and you get your tax bill essentially.
Yeah.
So 8.8 is the residential rate here. And then on top of that is a school requisition fee. I think it's called the Alberta School Foundational Fund, something silly like that.
Yeah.
That every province or every municipality has to collect this. And this one seems to be a little bit more steady in how it's applied. In Penhold, it comes out to 2.73. So you have 8.8 mill rate for your property, and then take that same property value that you have and then times it again by the 2.73. And then you combine those two numbers together, you get your full property rate.
Yeah.
Or property taxes.
Yeah.
And so in the end, it comes out to about 11.5 mils, or 1.15%. So how does that compare across the board? So 11.5, remember that's combined, or 8.8 plus the 2.7. So about 11.5. Blackfalds is 8.6 mils on the residential and 2.65 on the school. So it's fairly comparable.
It's a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But it's close.
Sylvan Lake, there's a very interesting 5.74 on the residential rate, and then 2.6 on the school.
I find that one surprisingly low.
Yeah, we'll kind of go over in a second. Innisfail is 6.6 on the residential compared to Penhold's 8.8, and then 2.66 on the schools. Perhaps more comparable would be Bowden. They have about the same population-ish, if I recall. Theirs is at 8.6 and a 2.65 for the school. So again, a little bit lower, kind of right on par with Blackfalds.
Yeah, they're almost identical to Blackfalds.
Three Hills is 9.78, so a 0.1% higher.
So they're pretty high.
Yeah, and then a 2.61, and then Rimbey, all combined, they're at 9.7. So that's residential and schools.
So they roll it into one.
Yeah, at least as far as I dug into it. Yeah. So Penhold's it's not an outlier. It's certainly not a radical number.
No, when you compare to places that are of a relatively comparable size and kind of configuration of town, it's not that different.
No, yeah, this price slides. It's in the upper half for sure. Perhaps even in the upper quarter, but it doesn't look like there's a large range. I think if you dug into it, and so like Red Deer's 7.28 and a 2.6. I think what you see with these larger centers, larger cities and towns, is that if you went and compared their non-residential, so say their business taxes, you would see that there's a lot of variation in there. But also, if you have a larger business tax base, you can afford to go lower on your residential.
Yeah, and that's where Penhold, we've kind of talked about this before. I personally am happy to pay that premium to live in a small town that's not a big industrial base.
Yep.
When you bring in a big industrial base or a big commercial base, you got a very different tax structure. You don't need to pull as much from your residents.
Yeah, so you got a trade-off.
But I don't want to live in a big place full of industrial and commercial. I like the small town atmosphere. So you pay a little bit more of a premium for that because obviously the tax base is limited here in Penhold. You basically have residents.
Yeah, largely residential. The council certainly seems to want to get a larger business base, and ultimately there will be a larger provincial base or residential base as well as the town expands. But it's so how much of the kind of the municipal tax burden you can kind of collect off of the businesses will impact how much the city or a town would have to collect from the residences. Kind of another element is you have to factor in is how many services are being provided by the town. Yeah. So, you can spread out the costs, but the other thing is to kind of restrain your spending. And, for here, that's always the question that a resident has to wrestle with. If you're not happy with the taxes in whatever place you live, you have to deal with, okay, where do you want to cut?
Yeah. What services are you looking at that you would consider cutting in order to save that money? And it can't be small things because, like you say, it's distributed among all the residents. You cut out $50,000 in the budget. That's not actually going to impact your taxes that much.
No, I should have looked up how much, like, the city collects a lot, or like a decent amount of money. Like we're talking, I'm not going to guess. I can't remember. But it's surprising how much money is collected for a town of less than 4,000 people.
Yeah.
So Penhold comes in a little bit on the high end, but not off the charts when it comes to taxes. And so, factor that in with how much you're paying in taxes versus how much services you're getting. And if you don't like the taxes, propose, what kind of services you might want to see the cut come from, because that's how you can't magically make money disappear and still keep the same services. That's not how this works.
Though, as we discussed, the federal government has a way of doing it.
Yeah.
Municipalities aren't allowed to go into debt the way the federal government is. There's actually restrictions on that. So
there's certain places that actually, like school boards, I think is another one that they're required to have a balanced budget. As I was doing some research, Chile actually has a balanced budget legislation. So like the country of Chile, so they actually have to fit here, fit all their expenditures inside their budget. I wonder if they've changed that a little bit with the last couple of years, since so many countries have blown out spending. Now, when it comes to your income tax, and this is what most people are dealing with now, is paying your income taxes. We obviously pay both a federal rate and a provincial rate, and they're both basically taxed on that same income that you make.
Yeah, it's not like you pay your federal, that pays down, and then you pay your provincial based on the remaining. It's paid on your full income.
So as I was understanding that's just like you're basically double taxing the same money.
Yeah,
which doesn't seem right, but that's what they do. And now both the feds and the province have what's referred to as a progressive tax system. And so basically what that means is that as you earn more, that those extra dollars are taxed at a higher rate. No doubt this is probably, most people are kind of either rolling their heads or going, yes, I know this, move on.
It's amazing how many people don't understand it though.
Yeah, no, most of the time I'm just tell me what I have to pay and let's be done with this kind of approach.
But you hear real stories and actually meet people who will say they turned down a raise because they would have made less. That's not how this works.
That's right.
It's the dollars between those tax brackets are the ones that you pay that tax rate on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're making, let's look at the federal one. If you're making between $50,000 and $100,000, you are paying 20% on what is above 50.
Yeah.
Anything below that, you're paying the previous tax rate. If you make over 100,000, you're only paying the next tax rate on the dollars above the 100,000.
Yeah.
So in that way, like I said, you hear those stories, people saying, "Oh, I don't want that raise because it pushes me just into the next tax bracket."
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you go $2 into that tax bracket, you're only paying that on $2.
Yes, this is correct.
So just for clarity there, I know that's a common misconception with taxes, really common.
Yeah. And so, if once you cross the threshold into a new tax bracket, it's not like your whole income is taxed at that rate. It's only that amount that kind of gets over that amount and into that new bracket. But nonetheless, so your first 50,000 at the federal rate is taxed at 15%. All the amount or the money you make between 50 and 100,000, these are rough estimates, is taxed at 20%. 100,000 to 155 is at 26, and then the upper threshold is any income over the $221,000 mark is taxed at 33%. So at least on these rounded numbers, you can your 2,000, let's see here, 221,000 and first dollar. So as soon as you cross that extra dollar into the next tax bracket is paying or is being charged at a higher tax rate.
So above that amount, every third of that extra income above that is going to the government.
Yeah. Now at the provincial level, the scale moves from 10% at the low end up to 15% at the high end. That 10% is for the first 131,000, which I think is around the average. Actually, it's around the average income for all of Alberta. I think so. It might be a little bit high, but I've seen other ones. I think it's somewhere in that range. So there's
up until recently, that 10% was a flat tax in Alberta.
Across all income levels.
Yeah. So when they changed that in fairly recent history, they basically said anybody above the fairly average income would then be taxed at a slightly higher rate.
Yeah.
So they still kept it. They went with the progressive tax rate, but they still kept it as simple and as minimal as possible.
Yeah, when you look at the other provinces, the Alberta rates look the most friendly. Let's put it that way. There are provinces that have lower or the first tax bracket is lower as a percentage, but then it quickly climbs to a higher level at lower income amounts.
Yeah,
but yeah, it used to be. I think it changed in like 2015. I think that was an NDP swap. So basically the more money you make, the higher the taxes are going to be paid on those higher amounts of money. Now, like I said, there's so much conversation around taxes, so much emotion and complaints and opinions. What I kind of want to do for the remainder of the show is just kind of quickly go through maybe some principles by way to kind of discuss or talk about or think about taxes and tax policy. Now, what I'm going to go through is the principles I'm going to go through come from a ministry in the States called Capital Ministries, and basically these are people who run the Bible studies for Congress. So believe it or not, there are actually Bible believing people in government. It just seems like more like Moss Isley or anything else, but there are apparently still good people, God fearing people in them, and they have Bible studies. And so this is kind of the source material I'm getting from this. And so it comes from a Christian perspective. Now I want to say 2 points on this before you kind of tune this out, because this is just a Christian Bible fundamentalist kind of thing. 2 points. First, all belief systems have some sort of foundational beliefs. So whether or not you come from the Christian perspective or some other secular atheist perspective, at the bottom, whenever you're talking about taxes, but on a more broad scale, just moral ideas, you are going to be arguing from a set of foundational perspectives or foundational beliefs. And we can have certainly, I'm open to having good conversation. I want good conversations about those foundational beliefs, but let's at least recognize that we both have kind of a perspective that we're starting from. And so having it just, this is the Christian perspective. And I don't think that discredits it any more than, say, having a secular starting point. We can hash out which one is better starting point, another episode perhaps, but let's at least say that we have foundational views that we are starting from. We'll talk about the differences on our show. The other thing is, I think we are still operating though within a common moral universe. And what I mean by this is that compare this to the physical universe. So some people believe that everything was created around us in 6 days by God 6,000 years ago. Some think God did this, many more millions of years ago. Some people think that the universe came into existence without any help at all. This is just good old random luck, maybe some evolutionary natural selection, but otherwise it's unguided. All those things, like one of those could be true. In the end, though, we are still stuck in the same physical universe.
We recognize the universe around us.
Exactly. And so to grab my analogy from earlier, wherever we think the universe started, we can still both agree that the sky is blue. Because we still exist in that same moral universe. Whatever we want to attribute the existence to the universe, we can hash that out. But we can still, even with those differences in place, we can still come to agreement because we live in a common physical universe. And so we can come to agreement on what is in that physical universe. I think the moral laws work out the very similar ways. We have a common sense of the sanctity of life, the dignity of life. We value honor over deceit. We value love over hatred or apathy. There's these common moral traits that we all can kind of point to, and whether we want to attribute those to God or to some other platonic realm out there, wherever these moral values come into being, however they came here, I think we all live in that same moral universe. And I think as we go through these principles, I don't think these are going to be that radical. I think you can understand them even if you come at them from a non-Christian perspective. So those are just two caveats at the beginning here, before we get into it. So the first principle here, just to get this off the board, government has a right to tax you. I'm sorry. The government, and I'm speaking kind of idealistically here, the government is actually there for our good and benefit. Like it provides a common service to everybody. In many cases, it looks after the police services, the courts, justice system, fire, public infrastructure. So like the roads. So everything that we kind of use in common, the government kind of looks after. And obviously in BC or in Canada, I should say, that goes all over the place. And healthcare would be another thing that you could kind of throw in here. All these things are kind of designed to help us function as a society. Because otherwise, without that in place, you have to be the police. You are the one who has to now fight the fire at your house.
Yeah.
You become the judge and jury. Like all these, I don't think we want a society where everyone has to kind of come up with their own laws and hopefully we're kind of in agreement. You want kind of an outside, you want to kind of delegate that to a kind of a common realm of power.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what government, at least primarily what government is there to do. I think primarily is kind of the enforcement of, or restraining of evil and the praising of good. And so in this case, they do provide a good, they do provide a service. And just like any other good or service, I think they are rightfully entitled to being paid for that.
Yeah,
I don't think that's too far of a stretch.
Yeah. The costs need to be covered. They're providing a service for which there is a cost. So to cover that, taxation is necessary. It's really hard to argue against that. It's pretty hard to argue that all taxation is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have that and have government. You can't have a functioning society without government. It just isn't feasible.
Yeah, you can. It's some this. No, again, who knows? You just print this money off now at the federal level, but no, I think the kind of this extreme kind of libertarian approach just does not work. Where government does not deserve any taxes. Though that I think I might be discrediting the libertarian view. I mean, that's more towards the anarchist kind of view.
Yeah,
but it's down that same road.
Just taking it a step further.
Yeah. So taxes in and of themselves are not theft. So that I don't think that tagline applies. Now that does not mean that there can't be good and bad government, of course, or good or bad use of taxes. That's where we're going to get into.
Yeah, and we've kind of talked about that in the past before too. That there's lots of good that can and should be done, but it shouldn't necessarily be done by the government. Mm-hmm. And so when the government takes on more good, more services than they should, then the taxation gets higher, and then you start snowballing into the very high taxes, which is when people start talking about, tax is theft, because they feel as though the taxes that they're paying are not providing the services they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of the hidden premise inside this first one, is that the government is there for our good. Yeah. Now, that good, though, as we've talked about, is a limited good. So not all good has to be done by the government. And we've talked about how there's these different spheres. In this context here, the author uses the word institutes. So you have other institutes such as the Institute of Family, of Marriage. You have the different institutes of commerce, so of businesses, mm-hmm. of the church. These are all different realms of authority that serve a particular purpose, and they're really good at that. Yeah. And that's kind of what they were set up to do. The problem becomes, though, often is that when the government kind of starts to infringe upon those views, like we can run your business a little bit better than you can. Or, the government can think this is the way marriage should be. That's not the role of government. The government has a defined purpose, and it's in recognizing the good that these other realms are supposed to be doing that actually puts a limit on what government should be doing. Right. So when we're looking at taxes and how the taxes are to be used, the question is, are those taxes being used to infringe upon these other realms, or are they being used for the good of these other realms? I think that's going to be an important criteria. Is this tax helping the role of the family or the functioning of family, or is it trying to subvert it? Is this tax hindering a business to create more employment, or is the government trying to become the employer? The government runs into the problem when it tries to be one of these other realms. Same with all of them. It's when they do what they were designed to do that everything functions optimally. Yeah. So I think that's really important, because we're going to look at this budget coming up had plans for paying for dental care for people under certain tax brackets or certain income levels. Right. Now you could say that's a good, but is it a good that the government is responsible to provide? That's something to keep in the back of your mind as we go through these other principles. So principle number one was the government has a right to tax, because basically the government is there for our good, and these taxes should be for our good, or to help facilitate the government in functioning for our good. The second principle is private property, and this is the idea that individuals are the ones who are the rightful owners and stewards and operators of their of their property, not government. So when we're talking about who's the primary owner, it's the individual. Yeah. And this is if and you agree with this if you believe in the moral principle of do not steal. If you think that's true, then you believe that you have the right to own private property. Because if it's, say, just the government loaning you that property, or the government giving you permission to have that property,
Why?
then it's not really theft from you because it's not really your property.
Yeah.
And I think this is important, because if you think that that property is owned or given by the government, or is owned or given by, say, just simply society in general, that's where you start to move in towards communism. Where you have this kind of common pool, and basically you as the individual will give you permission to run that piece of land, but really it's not yours.
Yeah.
It's for everybody. That's basically what communism.
Yeah.
That's the direction you're going to head into. And I think there's 2 points I want to make under this principle of private property. First, that recognizing private property, or basically recognizing that individuals own the property, argues against raising taxes or using taxes simply to redistribute wealth.
Yeah, because then you'd essentially be taking from my property and giving that to somebody else.
Correct.
So that is theft.
Yes.
By definition, that is theft. You are taking what is mine to give to another.
Yep. And
not to run a service for the good of all, but to give to
exactly yes.
another. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about things like it's not theft if the government is involved in things that are for the common good. Like I said, roads, police services, courts, fire departments, things like that. Canada, again, healthcare is another one that's been, I think there's arguments against that, but anyways, we see that there's a number of different things out there that provide a common service for everybody.
Yeah.
Now you might not use them all to the same level as the next person, but that's fine. It's the idea is that they're there for everyone. But the difference though is that so many services and funding that the government does now is aimed at particular groups of people or particular segments of society. And again, there might be a good intention behind it, but it is no different. It's no more moral to have the police go over to the millionaire's home and at gunpoint say, I need $100,000 because your two neighbors are only making $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
There's no moral difference between the police officer doing that and the government doing that. We just call one taxes and one extortion or something like that.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I don't think there's a difference if you believe that you own your property.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the government has complete right to do that because it's fundamentally their property. And so when you're looking at how the government applies taxes and so many different programs that are out there, I think we can bring out the highlighter, and you can kind of look through that and circle and highlight the programs that are for the common good and ones that might be for a more specific group. And I think that it would be a good way of assessing whether or not that taxes or those tax dollars are being used appropriately.
Yeah.
And I think I just want to put a point on here is that there's this notion that Robin Hood was this guy that went around and stole from the rich and gave to the poor. That's a common understanding of him.
Yeah. It's always referred to that way.
Right.
Take from the rich and give to the poor.
Exactly.
But that's missing a lot to the story.
That's missing entirely. What was actually going on with Robin Hood is that he was taking from the rich, the government actually. So you had the Sheriff of Nottingham, you had King John. Where did they get their money from? The exorbitant taxes and corruption that they stole that money from the people.
They were overtaxing the poor to the point of
outright
destruction,
poverty
for unnecessary means and poor management.
So
he was restoring order.
So basically, King John and Sheriff of Nottingham had illegally or at least immorally taken the money that wasn't really theirs. They were rich, yes, but they were illegally rich and enriched by taking from others. It's not like Sheriff of Nottingham had a nice side job growing an apple orchard or something like that. Like that's not where he got his money from.
Yeah, you can't take that and compare to today where everybody looks at the ultra wealthy who have formed a business that got them rich and say, well, that's a Robin Hood scenario. We need to take from them because they are rich and give to everybody else. It's not the right analogy to use.
No. Yeah. And so, Robin Hood, if you think Robin Hood is about stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, it's not. In fact, it reinforces this idea of private property. They were actually stealing from the lowly people, the peasants, for their own enrichment. And so Robin Hood was basically returning what was stolen from them in the first place. He wasn't taking from people who had legitimately earned and collected that wealth on their own. That's not what Robin Hood is about. So you've been disabused of that. Now the other element under this private property principle is that taking more taxes than is necessary is actually an unjustified taking of freedom. So oftentimes we just, I don't know, at least in my thinking, you might take my money, but at least, I still have all the freedom. I still can, have freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom of travel, all these kind of things. But when taxes are taken or whenever taxes are taken, there's a freedom lost, because now that money that I could have chosen to spend however I wanted to is no longer an option for me. So that, however much, just to pick a random number, that $10,000 in taxes I'm giving to the government is no longer $10,000 that I have the choice to spend whichever way I want.
Yeah.
And so this here is, I think, should be just as a thought in the back of the government's head, that whenever they're applying, or putting in taxes or thinking of tax policy, is that every dollar they take away from someone is taking away a little bit more of their freedom. Like it's not just another loony out of their pocket. It's not just a little bit. It's just a number in your dollar in your bank account. This is a freedom issue, and I think it needs to be thought in that way. Because at least for many people, this idea of freedom is still preeminent, and still significant, and it needs to be tied into the role of taxes and funds and money, property in general. Absorbing the taxes, any taxes, reduce your freedom. All the more reason for why the government should only take as much as is required to fulfill its purposes.
Yeah.
Principle number 3 is proportionality. So on this principle here is that government taxation should be just and proportional between all taxed individuals. And so in a free market society like we have, when we look at someone who's supremely wealthy, in vast majority of cases, the mafia excluded, notwithstanding, their economic success is usually due to their economic choices. They've made certain use of their money to build something new, to invest in something that has paid off.
Yeah.
They've added value and got return for it. And so let's see. I'm thinking of objections already down the road, but I'll get to those in a second. And so what this, I think, needs to be, I think this is really important, is that because people have free choices in a free market system, a capitalist system, is that they're earning that money legitimately. Like these are choices that people have made that have earned them money.
Yeah.
And so as a result, all money should be taxed at the same rate. Why should you punish someone for economic success? And here I think the easiest analogy is with sports. When you look at a player like Connor McDavid, I know you're not a big sports guy.
Means nothing to me.
Wayne Gretzky.
There you go.
Okay.
I know the name.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah.
Today, Connor McDavid, me as Leaf fan, Austin Matthews. But there in sports, you have athletes that are just supremely skilled at what they do. And so much of that has to do with how much time and effort and choices they made into it. So if I were to play a game of hockey with Connor McDavid, I have no right to say, okay, Connor, you have to skate or you have to play with one skate and half a stick. Like it might be fair, like it'll level the playing field, but why should he be punished?
Because
for
he took years.
the choices he's made to become that good.
He put in the years, the effort, the training to become what he is. Why should he be pulled down to the level of those who have not had that success,
or at least have not chosen to make that success?
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. We're it's so much of what we do is based upon the choices we make. Like you could probably program circles around Connor McDavid. he's doing circles around you on the ice. Like that's just how it goes. You've made the choice to be skilled in one area. He's made the choice to be skilled in another. Yeah. And no more should you be forced to come down to his level if he was to compete with you on your level of expertise. Then he should come down to you when you guys play hockey. Imagine sports being played like that. It would be absurd. You'd just be playing to the lowest common skill level, and like that just sounds miserable. That principle needs to be applied to economics as well. Because people are skilled with money. I know I'm not. Like I like to know where my money is. I'm not going to send it into any uncharted waters. I'm not going to take any risks with it.
See, and that's the big one. Is the other thing is the risks these people have taken for something they believed would pay off.
Yep.
A lot of us aren't willing to take those risks. Mm-hmm. You look like, I like using Jeff Bezos as an example. I don't think he's a great person in a lot of ways, but he's had great success because he took some very serious risks in an industry he thought was going to succeed. I don't think I could do it. Mm-hmm. He definitely had the potential to fail dramatically. Like it could have been a huge failure and he could have been bankrupt and destitute, but it paid off because he took the chance. He took a risk. Yep. And he worked hard at it, very, very hard at it. Yeah. So why should he be punished for that success when he did what he had to do?
Yeah. He's made his money legitimately. It might seem like an obscene amount of money.
It is.
Yes, it is. But you have no entitlement to it. That's his. Yeah. He's made it legally. You can argue whether it's moral or not. I think it is. He's not like he's killing people for it. Yeah. He's done it through savvy business choices and risks. There's just some people are better with money than others. I don't think this is a tremendous revelation. Yeah. And so tie this back to the progressive tax system. Why should we punish people for making so much money? It's like, just like, why would we punish Connor McDavid for being such a good hockey player? Like, doesn't he know better? or if we could do this, why shouldn't we take talent from Connor McDavid and give it to everyone else? Like that would be kind of how it would be if we could do that. Money, we're just able to do that. Yeah. We can just take some from him and just throw it out to everyone else. But just like we wouldn't do that with someone's sports talents, why would we do it with someone's economic talents? Why would we punish people for making good economic choices and risks and punish them for that? We wouldn't do that in any other realm of skill or talent. Yeah. And yet we feel good about this. This is the whole fair share motto.
We like to throw that around. The billionaires need to pay their fair share. Well, if you're bringing in $50,000 a year and you're paying a flat 10%, you are paying $5,000 in taxes. Yep. If you're bringing in $1 billion a year and you're paying 10%, that is, what am I thinking here? That's $10 million. Yeah. $10 million. They're paying their fair share of income earned.
Yeah. Yeah. It's flat rate. I think that would be the most ethical tax system. Yeah.
No, I'll just to throw a wrench in the thing here, but the one problem with that when it comes especially to the ultra wealthy is a lot of them earn no income. They have loopholes in this, and that's where I can see the arguments and I can see we may need to find ways around that, because a lot of them will use their money to work for them. So what they end up doing is they get it all under capital gains, and capital gains we tax at a lower rate.
And that's money gained from, say, your stock investments.
Yeah, investment earnings. So if you buy any item, like for some of the ultra wealthy, you buy a painting for $2 million and then you sell it for $4 million,
Yep.
you pay capital gains tax on the $2 extra million that you earned on top of your initial investment. Capital gains in Canada, we tax at a half rate. So you pay capital gains tax, you pay at your tax rate on 50% of the capital gain. So basically it's half the tax rate. And so a lot of the ultra wealthy, they're at a point in their life where they're not actually taking an income. So they're not paying out a salary.
Yeah, I was going to say,
They're taking capital gains on their investments.
Yeah, so they are making money. Let's put it that way. So a flat tax on all money made throughout a year,
And
like that's
and that would solve that.
Yeah, like I don't think. I think so many loopholes and
we've complicated it more than necessary for sure.
Like
anybody who's done their taxes this year or otherwise, if you've actually done your own taxes or even watched your accountant or somebody do it, we've overcomplicated this so far. Like
so ridiculous.
When I go through the taxes and fill everything in, there's categories for everything.
Yes.
For money out, expense claims, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just extremely complicated. But like you say, if we just did it as a flat 10% of all money earned is taxable. Yes, you could have things for charitable donations or that type of stuff. But all these extra taxable categories and untaxable categories and things like capital gains that's at a different rate. And that's where the ultra wealthy are finding the loopholes.
Yeah. And loopholes are only made because of how complicated the tax system is.
Yeah.
Like that's where they come from. If you keep it simple, you can't create, there's no loopholes there. There's no gaps.
There's no loopholes. If you have a flat 10% income tax rate, the only thing you call a loophole is probably illegal.
Yeah, that's right. Now I know we're getting a little long, but I want to continue on this. There's another argument that's often made in relationship to this idea of proportionality is that, and the fact that, some people are more talented and gifted and put in and make their economic choices and then they make money. But there's a certain realm of people who have this inherited wealth. Like they've just been born into it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's take their money. It's not really earned by them. It's not their economic choices that got them that money.
Yeah. We find it unfair that they got that jump start in their financial life.
Yes. My argument against that, or kind of against the fact that we still don't get their money, even if it is inherited money, is that I see that as kind of a relay race. If it continue the sports analogy, as long as the playing field is level, all of us have racers, so to speak, that have come before us and handed off batons, and no one has a right to say I get his baton or his bag of money into my lane
because my racers didn't do as well as his.
Yes, and so as long as the playing field is level, I don't think we need an equal starting point. And that's usually where it often is. Like everyone born into the world, we have to put them on everyone has to have the same starting line. You can't do that unless you take their money at the very beginning. Like it's not functional. And I don't think that it's ethical. Like I said, the money that people inherit are made by choices of those people beforehand. And you can get so far back and say some of that money was ill-gotten gain. I get it. I don't see how you can punish the following generations, especially generations down the road.
It really comes down to a sense of jealousy for almost everybody who's looking at that person that started out wealthy and complaining about it. They're also the same person that will say that they're trying to work hard so their children can have a better life.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do exactly what that person did.
Yeah.
What that person's parents did, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
They want to provide better for their children than they had, but they don't like that child got better from his parents.
Yes. Yeah.
So
grandparents or great grandparents.
Yeah. It's a sense of jealousy. We look around and we say, well, why can't we be as well off as that person? And I sympathize for those who have had a really hard life, but that doesn't work. You can't function society on that.
No. And just as a kind of a follow up to that is that I've been using these sports analogies. of hockey and running races. But it's not so clean cut as that. It's not like everyone has to stay in their lane and is unaffected by everyone else. Oftentimes, like just to think about how much your life has been changed by, say, the inventor of the phone or Jeff Bezos. You might not like him, but I guarantee your life has been made better because of what he has done.
I currently have multiple packages shipping from Amazon. Like
right.
it's, yeah, a lot of people love to complain about these ultra wealthy, but they're providing something for our society in most cases.
Yeah, they've created a service that a lot of people have valued.
Yeah.
And so there's, like I said, it's not everyone is running, no one is running an isolated race.
Yeah.
And in many cases, we're affecting one another. And oftentimes it's the people who have gone, who we see super far ahead of us in kind of the wealth race, as it were, are doing that because we've given them funds for a service they've thrown back at us.
Yeah.
And so let's not bag on the wealthy too much, because I don't think you have to look too far to see where your life hasn't been improved by them.
Yeah.
So I just want to quickly run through 3 benefits from this proportional tax rate, or to be taxing people at a proportional level. So everyone gets paid, or everyone taxed at the same rate. You see essentially what this principle is. So just to quickly run through it, the first benefit is that everyone pays their fair share. So, and this is truly their fair share. Everyone is equal before the tax law, as it were.
Yeah.
Every single dollar that you've earned legally, morally, is treated exactly the same. So that first $100 you made is taxed at the same rate as the last $100 you made.
Yeah. So you're not looking at how much a person made. You're looking at for every dollar that you've earned, we get 10 cents or we get 15 cents, whatever the tax rate is.
No money is more different value.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much you made, as long as from every dollar we get our portion.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the ultra wealthy are going to be paying an absolute amount that is way more than, say, the people at lower end.
Yeah.
So, keep it percentage, 10%. I don't know what the actual number should be. But here this kind of fits into the second benefit, is that the tax revenue actually increases. So if you have a progressive tax system, it becomes a disincentive for you to earn more money. You've mentioned this earlier. If I know that I'm going to be making more money, and the government's going to take more of that money because it's the higher tax bracket. Maybe I don't want to put in that effort to do that. Maybe I don't want to create that service or improve that service because it's going to cost me. I'm going to be paying more taxes. I'm already comfortable where I am.
For the amount of effort you're going to put in, is it worth it when the government, once you hit that amount, you're going to be losing 50% of your earnings? Is it worth it anymore? You've just lost the incentive to make that much.
Yep. And so if everyone is taxed at the same rate, then the money that I'm earning, that last $100, I still get to keep the same amount of it as my first $100. And so this creates the incentive to, okay, well, if I keep earning another $100, I'm just going to keep getting that same amount back. And so as a result, now no longer am I considering a higher tax bracket if I want to improve my business or improve my service here. And so you get businesses that perhaps they can hire that extra person, or at least they don't feel so. The tax issue is not an issue, or is not a thought to them now, and so it actually it removes the kind of these disincentives to earn more or to and if you talk about loopholes, if you have less incentives like higher tax brackets, people are not going to try to shift their money to bring them down into lower ones. You're not going to have as many people, moving their money out of country into tax shelters.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Because they're trying to avoid the higher taxes. If all money is taxed at the same rate, you're going to see businesses spend more of that money improving their businesses, which will bring in more revenue for them. And so that 10% that you charged to that business last year, and now they were able to keep that money, put it back into their business, and now they're earning another 20% more revenue. Guess what you've done with your taxes? You've gone up by 20% and you've kept the same rate. But in so many ways, when we looked at it, when you're going from 15% at your low end up to 33% taxes, you can't say that's not in the back of someone's mind. about how much money they want to make. Why should that be? That I don't think that. And so as a result, people aren't are less incentivized to improve their business and therefore gain more revenue, which could be taxed by the government.
Yeah.
Everyone wins in the end if you tag, or if you find the appropriate tax point. This is, if you want to look into it, this is known as the Laffer curve, Laffer, by Arthur Laffer. He's an economist for Ronald Reagan back in the 1980s. If you find that sweet spot, you get the revenue you need as a government, but you still incentivize, or at least people are not disincentivized to grow their businesses.
Yeah.
And so as businesses grow, as revenue grows, as people earn more income, your government can keep the same tax rate and still earn more revenue. So there's another benefit. Last one, everyone pays taxes. And this is, I think, this is where a lot of people don't understand, is that so many people, particularly on kind of the lower half of the income scale, actually don't pay much of the taxes, if at all. I'm more familiar with the American system, or numbers at least, but I don't think the Canadian one is much different. Because when at the lower ends, there's so many tax benefits, government returns, government subsidies, that all the money that you are actually paying to the government is given back to you, and perhaps in many cases even more. You've actually made money from the government.
Yeah.
But if everyone is paid the exact same rate, or sorry, if everyone is required to pay the same tax rate, everyone chips in. Everyone feels the tax burden equally.
Yeah.
And now think about this when it comes to the voting booth. If you are someone who benefits actually from the tax system, like you actually don't pay any taxes at all because of all the government subsidies and refunds and whatever you might have, are you going to vote? How is that going to impact your voting when it comes to the next election? Are you going to vote for that person who's going to take away that nice little tax thing you got going on?
Yeah, and that's where I've talked about this before. Is we can't government can't take things away. Once they've given this kind of service or this kind of offer of money or less taxes or anything, it's really hard to pull that back. Because like you say, if somebody as a voter currently gets all kinds of tax benefits from the government, they pay no taxes, they get the child care benefit or the child government benefit stuff, they get all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's a party that wants to go in and just kind of clean this up and take away all the unnecessary extra spending and flat tax. They're not going to vote for that person.
No, why would you?
No way.
Like,
you look at that and look at your bank account and say, yeah, that's not going to help me.
Yep.
So the government's buying their vote.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. Oh no. And you see this so much on the short term. This is where perhaps the citizen has to change their mindset about what they think about the politician. Is they think they can send the politician off to Ottawa and he'll come back with bags of money for his constituency, and that has such short-term appeal, but I think it has such a long-term consequence to how people vote and how I think you see government spending go up and up.
Yeah.
I think if everyone is chipping in at the same proportional rate, same flat rate, everyone is voting with the same tax incentive. No one is kind of benefiting from the tax system any more than the other guy. And so, yeah, I think this is a very interesting kind of thing to think about when you think about tax policy, is how much it actually affects people's voting.
Yeah.
It certainly has an impact. All right. So those are three benefits from a flat tax. Back to the principles. Principle number 4, and our last one, is personal productivity. So this here recognizes that individuals experience the most fulfillment and dignity through productive labor, and that a tax policy should use that innate human drive to its advantage. And so much now of our taxes are put towards entitlement systems and social safety nets.
Yeah.
And without any strings attached. And again, some of these are done for good reasons. I'm not criticizing that, but I am looking at and concerned by the fact that these handouts, you have to recognize, what it does to individuals. It creates a population that is dependent upon them.
Yeah.
It creates a population that perhaps becoming dependent upon them no longer has the drive to become a productive member. So you can see laziness get settled in. You get complacency. You get this kind of deserving or entitled attitude. You know, the government should be keep giving me this kind of money. It becomes instead of a helping hand, it becomes an entitlement. Like I said, it becomes, this is what I deserve now. And this goes against and creates a population that no longer serves and functions in that productive way. I think which I think humans were designed and created to live. You know, work is not, and labor is not a bad thing. Like if you come from the Christian perspective, work was not a result of the curse or a result of the fall.
No,
this was instituted before that.
Pre-fall, Adam was still expected to work.
Yes. And so when the government gives out these entitlements, it disincentivizes this natural drive of humans to become productive working members of society. And the more and more people that become dependent upon that and kind of dependent upon those government handouts, that is going to have long-term consequences for the population as a whole. Because over time, the more handouts you give out, there's going to be less and less people making the funds and the services that you have to tax to pay those people, and it does not have long-term benefits for a nation if it keeps doing that. So instead of entitlements, I think that the government is better served to use taxes, or at least the tax policies, in the sense of incentives towards the good, say, of the family or of the marriages or businesses.
Right.
So, for example, in this last budget, or this recent budget that we just talked about, there's a new savings program to allow families to save up to create tax-free savings accounts, building towards a down payment. So I forget what they're calling it, the first time home buyers savings account, something like that. This does not cost this is a way of people keeping the money they already have. It's not money given out to these people. They still have to work. They still have to put their own money into these savings accounts, but it gives them an incentive to do that. It actually uses tax policy to help them get that money saved up for that home. Again, going back to the private property thing, they recognize that it's good for people to have homes, that have private property. This is one way. This is an example, I think, of a tax policy helping out, or providing for the good of families, providing for the good of or at least recognizing the good of private property through the tax policy.
Yeah, instead of handing a person money for their down payment, it allows them to save, and the government forgoes their opportunity to take tax off of those savings. Yeah. So it's, like you said, it's not removing the incentive to work. No, it's actually increasing the incentive to work. Yeah. You're saying, well, if you work and you save this money, we won't tax it. Mm-hmm. We'll let you save that money up tax-free for your first home. Yeah. You just have to earn it. Yeah. Yeah. It makes earning and keeping your money and buying that first home more feasible. Yeah. It makes it easier. That's one way. Kind of on the flip side, I know the federal Senate in Canada is looking at, or is kind of working through a bill right now. It's only a bill to investigate or to study guaranteed basic income. And they've run test programs on this. So so just in case you didn't know, guaranteed basic income is basically the government saying, we'll give you this much money every year. Yeah, essentially they give you the minimum amount to kind of survive on is what most of them outline. Some will go even lower. It's just a basic amount so that everybody has something. Yep. And then anything you earn above that to kind of just add to it. Yeah. And like I said, they've done test programs of this all over the place. I know Ontario, there was a town in Ontario that did it a few years ago. Might have been a while ago now, 2017 or something, but they ran a test pilot program on this. And I don't know the details of the results. It always comes out looking good on a small scale. But this would be an enormous financial program.
Yeah. And just think about what that does, though. It becomes just another huge entitlement. If you no longer have to work for that money, why would you work? Like that's just how we function as humans in this fallen world. If given the choice, we'll do nothing. Like I don't know who doesn't enjoy, or I guess there's some people out there.
You'll have the very motivated people, but
I think for the average Joe, he enjoys doing nothing. I enjoy it. That's what we do most evenings. We'll just sit back and do nothing.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's after a day of actually productive labor. But if you give people a choice, and this perhaps goes back to the jealousy of wealthy people. It's like, oh, they can just do it and go. I wish I had their money, then I wouldn't have to do anything.
But they don't do nothing. That's how they got their money.
In many cases, yeah, especially not the inherited, but the people who've actually earned and made that money. And so so much of tax policy and the use of tax dollars goes towards this kind of disincentivizing element or disincentivizing nature, and takes away this I think good and healthy drive of a population driven to be productive. And when you do that, and when you take away that drive, it's only a dead end at the end of the road. The country will not survive that. It can't survive it on a fiscal level, but it's not even going to survive it on kind of a societal level. It's just not going to pan out. It's good, and it needs to be recognized that people work and labor to provide services and goods for everybody and for their own family. Like society moves forward as a group, and the more and more people that are kind of getting pulled along with it, it's a drag on the whole society before finally the society is just going to collapse.
Yeah.
So those are, around this budget time and tax season time, I know there's a lot of different conversations, complaints going on around taxes and finances, particularly when the government's involved. I hope these principles have given you something to think about, that the government has a right to taxes, and the government's there for our good, and that we should be funding that good that they do. That individuals own private property, not governments, not society. It's yours. That taxation should be proportional. Everyone should be paying the same rate. Everyone should be involved in carrying the tax burden. And then finally, the tax system needs to enhance personal and reinforce personal productivity. It needs to get people out there working. It should be incentivizing people to go out working, not just giving them money. Society in the long run, I think in the long run will flourish if people are productive. And I hope all four of these, play out. I think hopefully these four things have given you something to think about. And I don't know, for my 2 cents, this would be, it at least gives me some framework to think through this ridiculous, complicated nature of taxes. But I think it also simplifies everything down too. There's just so many different perspectives. Hopefully this gives kind of an equal footing, or at least a common starting point where we can start some fruitful discussion instead of those rants that we have on Facebook or at the tavern or something like that. That we can actually think through there, that there's some grounding principles that we can hopefully see government and encourage government to implement. Mm-hmm. All right. I think if you listen this long again, I thank you. I think I say that almost at every show. But really it is, if we're talking about the things that are important, time is one of them. In fact, you can earn more money, time you don't get back. So appreciate the time you have given to us and kind of listening to us talk through some of these issues. Hopefully you found them encouraging, perhaps educational, thoughtful, thought-provoking. Thank you for spending your time with us. My name is Brian Constantine.
And I'm Michael Rowland.
And this has been Penhold Talk Radio.